Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, From Voice to Value, How Service Providers Are Reinventing Voice Service with AI and Beyond, sponsored by Crescendo. I'm Michelle Coleman with NTCA. Our presenters today are David Ansell, Vice President of Sales and Marketing with Reinvent Telecom, John Britton, Chief Revenue Officer with Crescendo, John Hamblin, President and Chief Operating Officer with Altigen, and Paul Matt, Chief Operating Officer with NUSO. At NTCA, we believe that information about products and services should be made available to members so they can make informed decisions for themselves and their companies. As such, NTCA does not endorse, recommend, or make any representations with respect to the products or services being offered, sold, or described. If you have questions, please use the Q&A box to submit them. Questions will be addressed immediately following the presentation. And at this point, I will turn it over to John Britton.
All right, thank you, Michelle. And one minor programming note, Joe Hamblin's with us today. His brother John wasn't available, but just a joke. Welcome, everyone, and thank you to the NTCA for bringing us together. I'm John Brinton, Chief Revenue Officer at Crescendo, and I'm glad to be with you for today's session, From Voice to Value, how service providers are modernizing their technology stack and to expand services without adding complexity. In a minute, I will give you a deeper introduction to each of our three great panelists that are here today, but I'm excited to have this conversation with them and with you, our audience. So for many NTCA members, voice is a core service, but the economics, expectations, and technology around voice have changed. Rising costs, more competition, shifting customer demands are putting pressure on traditional margins. The real opportunity now is to use voice as a foundation for something broader, better customer experiences, new applications, stronger retention, higher value services, and a practical path to AI. And those are all topics that we will cover in our conversation today, all without forcing providers onto someone else's timeline. That's why this discussion matters. The NetSapiens platform was built specifically for service providers with a multi-tenant architecture, session-based licensing, deployment flexibility, and deep API extensibility. It now supports more than 7 million users and a growing ecosystem of more than 240 licensees globally, 3 of which have joined us on our panel today, and you'll be finding out much more about their companies. And Crescendo's NetSapiens platform is extending the ecosystem further with a new marketplace that we've created to help providers add capabilities without creating more vendor sprawl or operational drag. Today, the best way to make that real and understand it better is to hear from people that are doing it in the market. So I'm going to introduce you now to our 3 panelists, and I am joined first by Joe Hamblin, President and COO of Altigen. So Joe, tell us a little bit more, just give folks a 30-second overview so they can learn more about Altigen.
Yeah, hey, thanks, John. And Michelle, thanks for hosting this event. So Altigen's been around 30 years. We started out building our first cloud PBX on a Windows server many years ago and did that function for the better part of our history. We've just gone through a transformation piece. And as we looked at the structure out there, it's like, does it make sense to be the 45th cloud provider in this space? And we really came to the point that we realized that, hey, we would rather put our future development efforts into things like AI, integration, analytics, those types of things. So being well aware of the Crescendo team and the NetSapien platform, we made a very conscious choice that, hey, we're better off partnering with one of the better providers and stronger providers that have all the capabilities that we were looking for. So, and been a very good choice for us, John. We've been very pleased.
I love that. Yeah, I love that tagline in the bottom of your screen about start selling engagement outcomes. So we'll talk about that a little bit more later. So my next panelist is the Chief Operating Officer of NUSO, Paul Matt. So Paul, why don't you just give us a 30-second overview of NUSO?
For sure. Hello, everybody. I'm Paul Matt, like John mentioned, and NUSO is a global communication service provider. We have two sides of our business. One side we sell through a partner ecosystem, and all of our services, they can help offer to their customers. The other side of the business, we operate a carrier network, right? So we sell wholesale services to other people to help them power their particular ecosystems. As Joe mentioned too, and we'll probably get into this a lot more as this goes on, but if you go back maybe even 6 months, AI was a buzzword. Everybody threw it out there, but when you dug into it, nobody was doing AI really. I mean, there were some call transcripts and some things like that, but AI has made strides and leaps and bounds and changes in the last even few months, and we'll dig into a little bit of that later. And we are all in on that at Nuso.
Okay. Thank you, Paul. And our third panelist today is David Ansell. David is the Vice President of Sales and Marketing at Reinvent Telecom. So same thing to you, David. Just tell our audience briefly an overview of Reinvent.
Sure, and I did want to kind of congratulate you, John and Crescendo, because your guys' growth momentum is pretty outstanding lately, and it's been pretty impressive to watch what you all are doing over there. So, Reinvent Telecom, we're a division of Saddleback Communications. Saddleback Communications is actually an ILEC, much like most of the members who are on this call, and we've been around for over 25 years as an ILEC. The Reinvent Telecom division is actually our wholesale division, which is focused solely on partners. And we work with them to provide voice services, but also increasingly, we're here talking about AI and all of the things around that to help, help customers solve problems, right? That's what we're really in the businesses of solving problems with technology today and finding interesting ways to do that. So we do operate a fiber network in our community and have in our community direct business. So we share a lot on a part of our half of our business with a lot of the members here, but we have partners all throughout the United States using various unified communications, contact center, CX, AI solutions that we bring to market. So we're very, very partner driven and love to help people solve problems.
Great. Thanks, David. Yeah, we'll find out more about some of your details later. Just for the whole panel to kind of kick off our topic today, a couple questions we'll just go around. But for many NTCA members, voice is foundational core service. So kind of a question, because each of you have gone through this in some period of time in the last few years. What changed in the market that made modernizing the communication stack you were delivering services on, these type of voice services, for a priority for you? And when did you start doing that? So Joe, I'll go to you first. What changed and what kind of kicked off Altigen moving down that road?
Well, Altigen, our roots are in the voice space, as you know, John, and going back to making our own solutions. Really, what you find is we're trying to drive more integration and enablement with voice. That is a very key channel. I think probably in the NTCA membership space, it's probably still one of their key channels. Yes, we can use, IMs and chats and social media, but those are important. But we still believe that voice is one of the key contributors. And now we're trying to figure out, and add in new value add services. How do we make those same voice capabilities available 7 by 24? And that's where I think you start thinking about, where do we bring AI in? How can it be that 7 by 24 always available agent for that local small business or bank or credit union? And those are the things that we're working on. How do we tie those things back into back end systems so we can provide relevant answers, provide scheduling, account information, those types of things safely and securely?
Okay. So basically, you have to have the right foundational
You
platform or
have to
kind
have
of
the right foundation. It's
communications
gonna,
operating system
yep,
to
yeah,
make that
yeah,
work.
you gotta play buzzword bingo, right? So we want to make sure it's extendable, it's geo redundant, it's highly survivable, and most importantly, it's extensible. So we can extend it into new use cases to find new business outcomes.
Okay, that's great. And everybody add buzzword bingo now to your phrase list for today. Thanks, Joe, for that. David, why don't we mix the order up? We'll go with you next. So what changed in the market that modernizing the communication stack became a priority for reInvent Telecom? When did you start? Where did you start?
Well, I mean, I think it's always evolving, right? And I think that it's kind of a journey. We've been doing this for so long. I think that you can't, you know, we do work with consultants and we are watch what the trends, and you can see that, the voice itself was becoming more commoditized. And there was definitely, there's definitely pricing pressure and a lot of feature parity that we saw out there. And you're constantly looking like what is going to help your partners, deliver value. And then we also look at this, most of our focus is on small, medium business with our partners. And everything that we're seeing is that there was, a growing interest in using the data that they had to make better decisions, to try to run more efficiently, and to try to solve problems quicker. And that was, that kind of all coalesced with the really, everything that was going on with AI. And ChatGPT, of course, made everything explode. And so we even, we really started earlier than that, but we brought in a chief AI officer actually to help us internally before we even started with partners. And then, some of the things that, that Sapiens is doing with, Cairo and all the other things we've been bringing gradually more and more to market to help solve those problems as the time. But I would say probably, is in the voice platform, we had earlier changes, but definitely in 25 things really went into high gear.
Okay, that's interesting. It's good to start with that inward look first to make it real for your business, and then deliver that outward to customers. Now, Paul Nusso is a little different in that you guys, from our other two panelists, and you have done a tremendous amount of acquisitions over the last few years. So instead of just having the modernization of your platform, you have also dealt with things like consolidation, global service offerings, because you have offerings in Europe and other countries. So, what changed in the market for Nuso that made modernizing the communication stack a priority for you, and where did you start?
Similar story to everybody. I mean, we started as a voice, our roots are in voice as well. And as you said, acquisitions have made some of this fun because every time you acquire a company, of course, they don't use the same systems, they don't use the same platforms, and so on and so forth. Um, and we started using tools as such as AI to, read in the database, bring it in, do the integrations for us. And we started building all these bots internally to help integrate and manage. But, that's our internal side of the house. So, what's driving us on the outside is it's the market and it's the world these days, right? Like every day, maybe just because I do a lot with AI, but like my Twitter feed, all my feeds is just it's AI, it's AI, it's AI, and there's something new every day. And the market is driving us to get stuff out better, faster, cheaper, right? Like the days of where we used to come up with a feature and the product team would sit around forever and deal with it, and then we get it to dev, and then it for a semi-small feature, 3 to 6 months, like that's already changed. That 3 to 6 months is down to 3 to 6 weeks, and then who knows? Give it a year from now, maybe it's even less. And I think all of us in this world, all of us in the tech industry, not even here, like AI is here, and it is here to stay, and we all need to get on board. And it's great from the point where now you really can turn out new features, things that were always a concept, like, oh man, wouldn't it be so cool if we could do this? And you really couldn't. You didn't have the manpower. You were doing 28 other things, and we're all in telecom. We're all spread thin, right? But now you can do these things. You build these, start off with the infrastructure internally, build the tools, and now these tools are working for you, and you can do two, three, 10 different things at the same time and get products out there to market. And even the little things that used to be one-offs for customers. Hey, can we do this? I don't know. Now, sure, no problem. Let's do it. So that's kind of
Sure.
ours. We're letting the market kind of drive us, but we're staying on top and trying to stay in the forefront of it.
Yeah, that's great. And it's, you're all a similar profile to the NTCA members, right? You're all, like you said, you're in telecom. We all got 28 things to do.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of things going from our perspective as Crescendo, because we do power the NetSapiens platform. And from my perspective, we kind of see the NetSapiens platform as kind of like an operating system for a communication service provider that then, with our APIs, extensibility, our ecosystem of offerings, you can add these additional services to, and it helps us, service provider to grow for their specific market. And we've seen that many of the folks that come to us now have a large base of customers, but they could be business, they could be residential, they're on a legacy platform that is just not keeping pace with that rapid change in the market. So next question for the group is just, and I'll go back to you, Joe, for NTCA members listening today, what are the early signs that they should be paying attention to in their business to move from maintaining a legacy voice infrastructure to building a more modern communication stack? So what are the things that they should really look at and consider, that make them start the process of looking outward?
Well, I think it really comes down to focusing on business outcomes, and they have to start, in my personal opinion, it starts with what does their target audience, target customer base, what are they looking for? What challenges are they facing? As Paul touched on, AI by itself is nothing more than a buzzword, but when you really start looking at it, it becomes a force multiplier, right? We do a lot of work with rural banks and credit unions through our Fiserv relationship. And there's interest there, but there's also concerns. So I think you got to think about those. But I think everything that we're doing today, that working with Crescendo, and I think you and your team are doing an outstanding job, is really thinking about kind of what's next. How do we make AI work for us, not so much against us? How do we trust it? Those types of things. And again, how do we make it become that force multiplier? But it's really around extensibility. We want to make sure that things are going so fast, to Paul's point, as things leapfrog, we want to be able to make sure that we can take advantage of the next pieces as they come into play. And you'll see it in LLMs that are out there. You'll see it in a lot of these AI platforms, the way they are ingesting information and the way they are adding new capabilities. Extensibility and being able to trust it and being current is where I would be focusing, as on modernizing my platforms. But yeah, those are the key areas I always look for.
Okay. And Paul, anything else more you want to expand on that early signs of it's time to start looking at your options or moving
Like
from the legacy
I
structure?
think Joe hit a lot of it. I've just added a couple, similar things of if you're looking at the platform, one of the things that made us ditch our old platform is what are they doing, right? Like from a innovation perspective, a roadmap. Once you start seeing the innovation slowing down, no real roadmap, and kind of that, yeah, they're not sure where they're going. In the market today, you need to be sure, and if they're not, that's to me, that's an early warning sign.
Okay, that's good. That's actually a very valuable point. David?
Well, I think, a lot of the members on this call, they're dealing with a community that is largely rural, right? And so they know their customers, they own their network, and they're already doing a good job of taking care of them. So I think when is it time to start looking at modernizing or moving forward and making this change? I mean, I do think that they listen to their consumers, right? I think that's a big part of it is that voice of the customer and what they're saying. But I think then it's also they are the trusted relationships. So we know that small businesses need help and taking solutions to them that solve their everyday business problems and not focusing on the buzzwords, but what are their pain points in their business, and then implementing them. I don't think what we found, in our because we have residents. I mean, that is one thing that maybe is a little bit unique, but you can't do things too quickly. But I think you need to introduce them and you know with all of the AI that can be very threatening, right? So you have to meet them where they're at and then educate and not just wait for them. I think, John, the other thing that's happening, of course, is on the other hand, th- not as many people are taking voice. That voice revenue is going down. There's concern about USF in the community. So all these things are happening. And so many of the members are looking for ways to find other revenue. And that's where adding these AI solutions, but positioning them, I think that's what if they're losing revenue, they should start looking at this, I think.
Right. Sure. Absolutely. There's a offsetting to the copper retirement, the decline of traditional wireline revenue, things like that. That's an important consideration here. So thank you. So for our audience, we're going to go into a little bit of a spotlight session where I spend a few minutes with each of our panelists so you can learn more about their company. So we're going to start with Joe from Altigen and just find out a little bit more about them, and then we'll go through the other panelists and spend a little one-on-one time with them. So, Joe, one thing that you mentioned it, and one thing I'm really impressed with, Altigen serves over 1,500 financial institutions, so that is one of the toughest verticals to be able to support. So, we'll go through and we'll talk about a few things with the company, but maybe that's a foundational part of your story that's kind of unique to you, isn't it?
Yeah, and then a lot of that comes through our partnership with Fiserv, and we've been doing business with them for the better part of 2 decades now. And these are going to be a lot more of the smaller community banks, credit unions. There's some sizable ones in there, but you really think about applying it to our NTCA members here today. A lot of the banks that we would support would be in their communities. So, but it has been a great catalyst for us.
That's great. Well, it's also, though, a challenging vertical to be successful in. So I applaud you because there's a lot of compliance requirements, complexity requirements. So that doesn't happen on accident.
Yeah, yeah, and absolutely. And you're in many of these banks, you're dealing directly with the CIOs and the presidents of those banks. They are very hands-on in many cases, especially understanding what their risk is, what their overall cost management are. Costs are always big, especially in the credit unions. That's one of the things they have to factor in for back to their membership. So making sure that we're giving them a lot of great value at the right price.
That's great. So you told us a little bit already, but maybe, just round out the story for us. Who is Altigen?
Yeah, so again, we've been in the telecommunications space for 30 years. We really focus a lot on enabling our partners, MSPs and other service providers. Where a lot of times we're not the brand you would see. We're not, we don't have the market recognition. So we partner tightly with our MSPs and other service providers out there to enable them. Um, Having a relationship with Crescendo is very key because now we're bringing them yet another very powerful platform that has a great price point, all the capabilities that most of any mid-sized customer, even enterprise customers, are going to need. We have a variety of things. We've intentionally tried to make our relationships and partner programs very, very flexible. So we do everything from agent reseller programs, white glove deployments and support, where I will actually set up and I will customize it to your needs. If you want me to answer the call as you, we can put those arrangements in place. We'll offer you sales engineering, deal support, flexible billing models. I have some MSPs that like, hey, I don't want to have a billing platform and be dealing with trying to count SIP minutes and those types of things. So I can do white label billing for them. I have others that say we're good with it. What we're seeing in the MSP space, these IT MSP providers, with all of the compliance taxation things that are going into that, more and more of them are saying, hey, do that for us. We'll just let you white glove that for us. And so we're doing those types of things. Some of the folks on this call, they'd be very comfortable doing their own SIP billing and want to use their own SIP trunks. We'll support that model also. So I don't want to compete with them. I want to enable them, right? That is not my goal, is to be the competitor with these MSPs. I want to be the complementary service that helps them grab additional value, offer additional value and grab additional share of the wallet.
Yeah, so our companies have known each other for a very long time in this industry. So I can say from our perspective, we're honored to have you guys now as a licensee of the NetSapiens platform and in our community and delivering that. So, talk a little bit about how you're helping MSPs and other partners, so whatever the partner type is, through the offering that you've kind of built around the NetSapiens platform.
Yeah, so again, our goal is to be flexible. Let's focus on the business outcome. What is the partner trying to achieve? What are they trying to accomplish? Is it just adding more services so they can differentiate themselves? Is it adding more services so they can grow share of the wallet? How much do they want to put into it as far as do they want to be the upfront person and be seen and taking tier one calls? Would they like us to do it? So again, we have really tried to tailor our programs to be as focused on delivering the value and focused on the outcome that our partner or MSP is looking for. That's really been our goal.
Okay.
So
And so what are
everything,
what are the requirements to work with Altigen then? Sorry to interrupt you.
we have kept that a low barrier of entry. So there's no strict quotas. We don't have any big, huge upfront commitments. We have, again, it's really trying to be a very complementary service that works for both, right? I've tried to instill since coming to Altigen, I've tried to instill the mindset of we want to be easy to do business with at Altigen, but more importantly, we want to be people in a company people want to do business with, and that's what we try to do every day. And by doing that, um, creating flexibility and having a great team behind me that's able to develop the downstream solutions that are required for the back end office capabilities to enable that, it has been very beneficial.
That's great. And you're a tenured leader in this industry. You've been with multiple companies. What are some of the things that you see really sets Altigen apart?
Yeah, so yeah, 10 years. Yeah, well, I'll
I
date
said
myself here.
tenured. See,
I
that's
spent
how we
I
say
spent
that's how
32
we
years
say it,
with
Joe, that we don't put a date on ourselves, right?
yeah, I spent 30 some years with Sprint T-Mobile working in that carrier space. So I've been there, done that, and got all the badges that go with those wars. But I think the thing that sets us apart is we have two different divisions inside of Alta. So we have our solution side where we provide like the Crescendo platform, and we lean into the UCaaS, CCaaS space, even contact centers, those types of things. And then I have again, coming from my background in chaos, like I went through with the Sprint T-Mobile merger, comes opportunity. So I've been able to pick off a lot of great talented developers out of that old ecosystem and bring them in here so we can do the value add customization that's required. Because when you go into whether it's a partner ecosystem or you go into a customer ecosystem, no two are ever the same. Back offices are different. Um, Billing systems are different, provisioning tools are different, account management, all those things, and it have to be factored in from an integration standpoint. And while a lot of, we don't have to necessarily write a lot of development code, we do have to do a lot of custom integration anymore. The beautiful thing about a lot of these API gateways and those types of things, we can extend the capabilities into the back office to make the front end solutions like the Crescendo platform more powerful. Because of the automation, because of the integration, we can surface more information to make that customer engagement and experience even better.
Okay. Thank you, Joe. Appreciate it. I'm going to move on in our spotlight next to Paul Matt from Nuso. And I'll say Paul Nuso actually originally came into our, partner licensee ecosystem through an acquisition that you guys did. And you've done many more since then. Maybe before we kind of get into some of the finer points, give our audience like just an overview of the breadth of Nuso and the services that you offer.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Joe did everything Joe said, knew so, right? I mean, Joe, you did a great job. We're in a similar boat, so I won't beat up on all that stuff. But from the service perspective, I'll give a quick we started off as a spin out of a hardware remanufacturer, and all we were doing was selling SIP trunks to sell more PBXs, right? That's where we started. And then,
Hmm.
we slowly grew over time, and we started off with Metaswitch, and I'll touch on that a little bit later. And now, Metaswitch is still there. You never transition all your customers up, but NetSapiens is our primary UCaaS solution for a gazillion reasons that we can touch on. But we offer a little bit of everything under the sun. We build a lot of our own solutions. We've done a lot of acquisitions, right? So we just recently acquired a big contact center company that plays in the Fed space, which a little bit before Doge. I wish we would have known that before we pulled the trigger, but things happen. But the solution's amazing, and we're taking that to outside of the government now to offer that to the rest of the masses. We're commercializing it a little bit more. But I mean, we're all in the space. We have the same stuff everybody has in a way, right? It's just what do you do with it and how do you offer it? And we started off with the same white glove approach. And don't get me wrong, we still do that. We have a lot of that. I have a whole team of people that do nothing but white glove. But we also build, so we kind of like split it in half or split it however the customers and partners want. We're also big on automation. We learned this early on is, you can do stuff manual and you can only scale so much or you have to throw bodies at it, right? So we started automating things, and that's once again where NetSapiens comes in. The API in NetSapiens compared to something like a Metaswitch, if anybody's ever looked at that, boy, you will be happy to never touch the Metaswitch API again once you look at the NetSapiens one. It's night and day difference. But anyways, we automate everything we can, right? And we also try to offer these same tools to our partners and our customers, right? So you can get in and do all the work you want, or yeah, go ahead, come to us and we'll do it. And same thing, similar Joe talked about. We answer on behalf of partners on a special deal as them. We can do all that same type of stuff. And then on
Okay.
the carrier side, whoops, well, that's good. You get it, right?
No, I was going to ask
Yeah,
you about that,
yeah,
the carrier services, because you probably have some of the NTCA members in your portfolio already as
we
customers of
do.
carrier services. You guys have built out a global network per se, right?
We have, yeah, and we've done some interesting stuff with the carrier services as well too, right? You mentioned earlier that, voice for a little while was kind of a race to zero. And on the carrier side, boy, is that true. I mean, you're selling stuff for fractions of a penny, right? A minute. And so you got to
Hmm.
do something interesting. You got to do something good. And, one interesting thing we've done is what we call our Nuso Flex product, which I won't go into a big spiel about it, but inbound redundancy. Everybody has outbound. You have LCR, you have 50 routes to 50 different places, no problem, right? Inbound though, right? Like a big carrier who has fiber in the ground or something, they have a cut. They have a cut. They're not going to pick it up and move it to their competitor. We have the ability to, through automations, to move stuff right around it. So, you can't get to maybe I don't know, one of the what's the word? One of the local switches somewhere. Well, we might be able to route around it where everybody else can't do that. So that's one cool thing we've done on the carrier side. And again, offering the same tools on the carrier that we can. We do a lot AI in the back end where we added it to our stack. So for fraud detection, and boy, on the carrier world, that's huge, right? All the spam robocalling and all this stuff. So we try to go pick out like weird uncertainties that if a human have to dig through that, it would take you weeks, where the machines can do it in minutes, right? So.
Right. That's really neat. Yeah, and you've grown in Europe, so we're proud to have the NetSapiens platform hosted by in two major continents now. So that's great. So,
Oh, I'll
news
give you a quick
you
shout
talk.
out if you want there, John.
Sure,
Sorry, not to cut you off, but
that's all right.
like I said, we had Meta, we have our own little homegrown. It's real small. We have the NetSapiens. NetSapiens is our prime. And when we were going to Europe, we chose NetSapiens even over our own homegrown, and especially over Meta. I won't get into all the reasons, but like this is a great solution, and we decided this is what we're taking with us to Europe and abandoning even what we have. So it's just
Yeah,
you
thank
guys have
you.
a great product.
No, we're proud to be partnered with you there too and see the growth there. So you touched on this a little bit. You originally built your platform on Metaswitch. What changes in the market really made you start evaluating alternatives? Because you have all your acquisitions. You've already got a lot of projects of consolidating things,
Correct.
combining things. You talked about taking the CCAS offer to other markets besides the Fed market. Something's got to be a decent priority to make your list. So
Yeah,
what made this make your list?
I'll tell you what made us the Meta thing, starting there. What made us really see that is even before the sale to Microsoft and something I mentioned earlier, it just almost stopped. It slowed down, right? Like even doing a demo to a customer, like, well, that's cool. It has all the features, but it looks like it's from 1960, and they're not wrong, right? Like they didn't keep up with innovation, right? And then we stopped hearing from them and like the roadmap uncertainty and all that. And we saw the writing on the wall, something's going on, and that's where we started looking at that point. And we're glad we did. Now, don't get me wrong, we still have the Meta running. The thing's a workhorse. It works, right? It's just they didn't innovate, and the future is just really uncertain. with them.
Right. So when you looked at modern platforms, what was the most important capabilities that you were looking for?
Uh, Knowing they're trying to keep up with the times was the biggest thing, right? Like, is there a plan? That's the first thing. If no one has a plan, they don't know what they're doing in the future. I don't care how great your platform is, it's not going to be great in a year, right? Especially these days where it's going now. So that was the first thing. And then API, a nice written, easy to consume API. That was key because again, we automate as much as we can. So, an API that's easy to use versus a bit unfriendly. And then one thing that's huge is this, and you guys, this is why we have you, the strong partner ecosystem. I like to think of it as like, look at open source, right? Open source, how does some of the stuff they build is so cool because you have people around the world with so many different opinions and stuff building and adding to it, right? And versus just like one company building something. Versus that's what the ecosystem gives you. You don't even realize that you're missing something until like, oh, I could offer that through the ecosystem. That's probably a pain point on my customers, and all of a sudden you start getting sales you didn't even know were things you were losing to. So
Right. That's interesting. That's a good point.
yeah,
That's what we've really strived to build out our ecosystem and now released our marketplace. So, you're kind of, as chief operating officer, you got to make all these disparate things kind of work.
yes.
So, looking forward, what role specifically do you see technologies like AI and automation playing in the evolution of your communications platform?
It,
You touched
it
on it a little bit. Fill it in a little bit more for us.
yeah. I'll tell you this. I'm gonna put a big disclaimer on it, and I live in AI and I live and breathe it every day, and I love it. Like this, like we're gung ho on it these days. But I can't tell you in a year because it's changing so fast. But what I can tell you right now, what it's doing is if you're not using it to do a lot of your back end stuff that used to have 10 people digging through for, like I said, for fraud, for analytics. I mean, even things like call routing optimization. If anybody's ever dealt with rate decks with 800,000 different routes and prices and all that stuff, and like, why are we doing that as humans? Why are we not putting that into a machine and pressing a button and then it spits out the answers? Of course, you got to fact check it and do stuff like that. That's when you bounce it off multiple AIs as well too to have them fact check each other. So those are the things we're doing today is all of that type of stuff. But what's going to happen a year from now, 2 years from now? I wish I knew. It literally is changing so fast to know. But the biggest thing is time to market, right? And I said that earlier, is now you can take something from concept out the door, released in weeks, not months or years like it was before. And that's where everybody needs to get to. And there's a flip side. And we said it earlier, is sometimes going too fast is bad too. You also have to play to the right customer tempo. You can't push a new update to your customer every day. That's like they're going to lose their minds, right? Just like when you go log in your cell phone, all of a sudden it's all changed and you don't know where things are, right? Like, so you got to balance it. But you can still get new features out for new customers while not messing with your old customers.
Yes, I think the Android guy here will say that's what I heard from all my iPhone friends with iOS 26, but that's a different topic. So,
Exactly.
you know, many of the people in our audience and the NTC members may know they need to modernize their voice infrastructure, Joe. But sorry, Paul, what options exist today for providers that want to transition without having to operate everything themselves in your mind?
That's a good one. And there's a lot of options. I mean, like the first thing is you don't need to build it yourself. There's plenty of hosted platforms already ready to go out of the box. I mean, you guys offer it, John, right? We offer it, other people offer it, right? You can come to a partner like that, get right into their hosted platform, and then you can even potentially bring your own backend infrastructure, right? That's also something we do as well too, where we have actually a couple of partners that they run their own NetSapiens platform. We're the back end, we're the carrier side for them, and they go to people like this community here that are trying to replace their older infrastructure, and maybe some of their people have retired and they don't want to spend a lot of money. Well, that's a great way to do it. Is we move all the numbers over to us. Now we pick up all the regulatory burden, all of that nightmare. We handle all that backside. Our partner handles all the net sapiens and stuff, and like the three of us, we all win, and it's an easy way to transition over instead of having to build this all yourself. I mean, that's a nightmare standing up a whole platform and redoing everything and moving everything.
Right, that's cool. So that's an example of what happens when they kind of pair the platform with the right back-end network infrastructure. That's what you're
Correct.
doing. The example you just gave, right?
Exactly. Yep.
All right, cool. Thank you.
Yep.
So, Paul, we're going to transition to David. So, David Ansell, the VP of Sales and Marketing for Reinvent Telecom. And David, you guys, you have an interesting story. Maybe take a minute or so and talk to us about the Reinvent Saddleback, how, kind of how you got to where you are today.
Oh yeah, thank you, John. It is a pretty interesting story. So probably our ownership structure is one of the most unique ones that I've ever worked for, and probably in the industry. So 25 years ago, the Pima Maricopa Indian tribe was having trouble getting service for their community, which is technically it's a rural a community, but it's located in Scottsdale, Arizona, just down the street from you. So it's kind of an interesting situation. So they ended up buying a telecom provider and creating their own rural ILEC and to serve their actually their community. Right. And so that's where it all started is, and they brought in a number of people, and that kind of started growing. I mean, the resident population, I think it was around 1,400 residents on voice, and that is still there today. But that's kind of the origin story is that they
Hmm.
they were getting bad service, and they
Right.
had to and they needed their community to have good voice service and 911. And so we are owned by a Native American tribe, which does have some advantages when it comes to taxation or rent that we don't have to deal with. So it's made a perfect situation for them to evolve when they went to voice over IP platform, which was really, really early on. They were super early in that market. They started working with partners early to leverage that capacity and that investment, and started really with SIP trunking, but just got in the game of what you might call wholesale or white label voice over IP on their traditional voice platform, which was more of a central office switch, as you know.
Hmm.
So it is fascinating because the tribe actually has uh, 8 or 9 different enterprises. They run a Major League Baseball stadium for spring training, soccer fields. They run casinos. They have their own government. They have a 250 plus person police department. We have a couple 911 centers. And then they actually have an MSP that actually focuses on the Department of Defense, which is very unusual. So we of course provide voice and data services, and now more AI services to all of these enterprises, whether it's hotels or police departments, and what have you. But it's given us a really deep understanding of what is needed to grow, and we leverage all of that knowledge to our partners, and that's completely how we've grown. Is we've learned, whether it's selling to the residents, and then it eventually expanded to the community, selling to the businesses. And there's about 500 direct businesses customers that they have. Now all of them have our internet, so we're an ISP, and one of the things we're pretty proud of is all of the residents have fiber to the home now at 1 gig. We're a Calix shop, so that is completely informed our existence. But it's really no different than any businesses out there. When you're working with them, is everybody is trying to solve problems, trying to do more with less, trying to leverage all of their data and all their people. So yeah, it's a very different beginnings to how we got to here today.
So Saddleback is the local entity supporting the local community. Reinvent is kind of how then you've taken a lot of the learnings there and packaged that into offerings for partners, nationwide. What makes Reinvent Telecom different from other UCaaS wholesale providers that our NTCA members might be talking to?
Well, I mean, I do think that probably we resemble a lot of the NTC members very closely, especially on the Saddleback side. So
Mhm.
they could come out, and we'll share the lift trucks together, but and deal with the residents' problems. We just put in lifelines. So there's a lot that goes on that side. But then when we deal with the business too, we have to understand how to solve those problems. I think the other thing that is different is, like, they all own their network, right? Bandwidth broadband, that's like that's really their growth engine now, and they have to protect that, and we got to hope that funding keeps happening. But the thing that we bring to the table is what we're seeing, and we've worked with numerous ILECs that are looking to maybe get away from managing and owning their complete system. You've helped some, we've helped some, but what we bring to the table is, really, the knock, the engineering team, the compliancy. Of course, we have to have billing for residents and businesses, so we have a whole private label billing solution and compliance group that can help with that. And so we really can, what I think is a little bit different is we really can work with any ILECs to meet them where they're at. If they just want to launch like AI receptionists, many of these small businesses have, just too many calls and not enough people. It's hard to hire people. So we can solve these problems with that. We've also focused, we've learned with our own bandwidth in the ground that a lot of customers want redundancy. Sometimes we can sell them 2 fiber circuits. Well, we brought to market just a little while ago an always on internet solution that does leverage LTE, but it's particularly designed for providers that have fiber and makes it easy to sell and get to market. So it's not just voice, it's data solutions too, that we kind of work with them with. And it's everything is a la carte. Our goal is to help our partners provide solutions that solve problems.
Yeah, it's interesting. So let me break the follow-up on that into two different pieces. So you mentioned AI receptionist. AI has come up a few times in the call. How should NTCA members think about introducing AI to their small business customers who may not be very tech savvy? So tell us a little bit about that solution and kind of what's the path to get that to where it matters to customers.
Yeah, I think that they should introduce it slowly. I definitely don't think that the idea of leading with where we're going to replace people is the way to go, right? I think it's what business problems are you having? Do you have trouble dealing with calls after hours? How are your emergency calls handled? Are if you're a doctor's or a dentist office, are you able to deal with all the calls when people go on breaks or when things are very busy? So I think the best way to introduce AI, particularly into, kind of conservative markets, is to do it slowly. They shouldn't even know there's a transition. It should be unnoticed and just end up providing better service and be a delight, right? So I think that's the key. And one of the things we've figured out is we that term white glove service, but we've decided that the best way to get to market with AI to help our partners is to take on all of that back end setting up for them. We'll get that information and we'll create a lot of that. We'll help train the to answer all the questions. And so they don't have to be AI experts. They don't have to be AI auto attendants. So, experts or what have you, receptionists. We take care of that for them and we kind of guide them through that process with our services. So I think that's the key, is to approach it slowly, to focus on the problems that the customer has, and figuring out ways to solve that, and then bring this into the equation. I mean, I'm not sure that that we've got this solution that I think can help this. I don't think I would lead with talking about AI. Not everybody is in love with this AI as much as we are.
Right, right.
So,
and the second follow-up on your statements before is you mentioned the always on internet. Can you explain how that actually helps a partner who's already selling voice to a business customer?
Sure. So that's a great question. Thank you, John. So one of the things that, we've got almost all of our copper gone. There is a little bit left, I am ashamed to admit, but I think everybody has some out there. Not everybody's at different places along that line. But one of the things, when we're out there selling voice over IP, is there's still some concern about reliability. So if you're providing the broadband, these members own their network. They know it's reliable. They take care of it. But there's often times that businesses, let's face it, they cannot do business. If there's a fiber cut, doesn't matter how, reliable, there's issues that can come up, or when, what have you. So having a redundant solution, it's something that actually came from customers' request. And so it is, ours actually deals with the top three carriers. We learned that no matter where it is, you're never sure which carrier you're going to get. So, T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T, they're all in there and it picks the top two. So it's a dual SIM type of solution. But it sits there and it's not the main internet, but it is a backup, and we've catered it to our partners so they can sell it with these. There's no overages, right? If somebody has a fiber cut that's 2 days or a day, their customers are still going to get service. So it really helps, the members here keep their customers happy and solve their problems if there is an issue. Now we all hope there's not an issue, but they do happen. So,
All right, that's great. So let's bring our other panelists back. I've got a couple more questions for the group, and then we'll take questions from the audience. So, kind of appreciate all three of you kind of sharing in detail, what the uniqueness of your organization and the where you've gotten through, because your journeys are like the journeys of a lot of people in our audience. So, I'm going to go back to you, Joe. If an NTCA member takes one practical step in the next 90 days, what should it be?
Well, I think it's really understanding where they're at. Obviously, I mean, it's a broad statement, John, but it's really, I would say at the business level, assessing your customer needs, assessing your community needs, and seeing how you align with not only where they're at today, but where you envision them going, right? One of the things I would say the NTCA community is doing is, to me, broadband services in my world is the same as electricity. If it's not there, and if it's not readily available, I'm out of business. And so I tie the two very, very tightly together. Broadband services and those types of capabilities to me is just as important as the power that runs my house, right? So aligning where you're at today with where your customers are at, but more importantly, where do we see this going, and making sure that there's a roadmap and an actionable plan that gets them there.
Okay.
But every one of those communities, they've probably got the communities have probably had a lot of the same needs. So understanding, hey, where am I at? And it's a reflection, looking in the mirror, saying, hey, what's my ecosystem do today? Where do I have gaps? How do I fill them? And partners
Right.
like the ones on this call, that's our job, is to help you fill those gaps without increasing a whole lot of operational overhead expense burden on them.
Okay. And now, just before I go to you, Paul, I'm going to ask the audience if you have any questions for me or for our panel, feel free to drop them into the chat. We'll get to them closely. But Paul, from your perspective, what's the practical step to take first in the next 90 days?
Tough question to answer. Everybody's all experts. Everybody's been doing this for a long time, and everybody knows their business, right? So I think, Joe touched on it for sure. I think every market is different. So the first thing is really understanding your market and what your customers need. That's part of it. The second is, I'm not a broadband data guy, right? So I won't even try to pretend I can know stuff there. But from the voice side of the house is back to like what we've been talking about. Are you on the right platform? Is there a future of that platform? Is it keeping up with the times? Where is it going? And is that something that's actually going to help your customers? Because like I said, every market's different. I mean, just even between like US and UK as an example, it's just, you would think we're pretty close, right? But they are so different over there. So,
Right. Yeah, that is something that when you start doing international M&A, you really realize we've got community differences here. You get larger
yeah.
differences when you get into those types of markets. That's something to think about. David, what's a practical step for any NTCA members that are thinking about this to take in the next 90 days?
Well, I think one of the real practical steps is I don't assume that everybody is using AI. I imagine quite a few people on this call are. But if you're not using AI today and you're in Microsoft, I would suggest getting onto Copilot and trying that out. If you're not a Microsoft fan, that's fine too. You should purchase don't use the free Chat GPT or the AI that's out there that's free. The AI that's free is several generations behind, and you really don't get an idea of how fast AI is moving. So one of my real practical suggestions to people when I'm asked about this is you need to buy a subscription to one of these. It doesn't really matter to me which one, and start using it yourself if you haven't. So assuming that you're already down that road, my suggestion would be to start adding a AI solution to every voice sale or every sale that you're doing and figuring out ways to do that, because that's going to drive your growth. And and use it to solve problems, not selling features, right? So
Yeah, there was something Joe said early on that I think just resonates here. Is I used the term last fall at a conference that I really see this as like the renaissance of voice services with what you can do with AI applications. So if I'm a service provider, for a long time, I think not, it wasn't disrespected, but it was, deprioritized the richness of the voice conversations, the context, the meaning, the things that are in there. And with these AI applications that we can take and add into our commercial offerings for customers, it really helps them get the value out of that. So I think your point is right. If you sum it up, it's like find the starting point, then you yourself begin to understand the value, and then how do we find the benefit in these services?
like, isn't that like from voice to value? Isn't that the name of this?
Well,
I was like, that's perfect. So
it kind of comes around that way.
yeah.
So, and Joe, real quickly, what type of provider or partner should come talk to you after this webinar?
Um, I would I would encourage any of the partners that are interested in expanding, adding additional value add services. They already own the key ingredient. They have the network and they have the customer relationships. So any of the customers out there that are or partners out there that are interested in adding new capabilities over the top of that ecosystem should reach out to us and let's talk about it and see what type of plan we can put together. And John, back to your other question, so if you think about, what are the threats for these areas? I don't know how much of a threat Starlink is to some of these folks, particularly the broadband provider focused, but how do we add additional value add capabilities that can build them a wider moat to protect themselves from some of the wireless folks that will come into their space and some of the satellite providers that will come into their space. So, let us help you build a moat with value added capabilities over the top that really differentiates you.
Okay, excellent. Paul?
Pretty similar answer. Anybody. I wouldn't say there's nobody that shouldn't talk to us if they're looking for different things. And, it can be as big as, like I explained earlier, you're looking to replace your complete voice infrastructure, to as little as, oh, hey, I need this compliant voice recorder that, does sentiment analysis and gives me reports and helps me do stuff and allows, recording for these people and that and all these different little triggers that, would fit a small sector of the market, right? Like,
Great.
So, yeah, pretty much anybody.
Okay, thanks. And David, one sentence, what type of provider or partner should come talk to you after the webinar?
In one sentence,
Oh,
anyone
okay.
who
You're not a one sentence guy, David. Give it. You
I'm
can.
sorry, but I love that. The it, anyone who's interested in expanding their solution set for their existing customers, owning those customers, or even getting rid of their the switch management, we're here to do it all, and we'll meet you where you're at.
Okay,
I
that's
tried, John.
excellent. And for our audience, you did a great job. Everybody did. And so for our audience there, I have put up the follow-up information if anybody wants to follow up with any of our speakers, find out more. So I appreciate our panelists joining us today. And Michelle, it doesn't look like we have more follow-up questions, so I'm gonna turn it back to you to close this out.
Great, thank you so much, John. Is it okay if we post this webinar on our website?
Oh, absolutely. We'd love to have the webinar posted on the website.
Okay, for those viewing, you can go into our website next week and it'll be under archive webinars in the events section of our website. Thank you so much.
Right.
Thank you so much, John Britton, at Crescenzo for sponsoring today's webinar. And thank you to all of our panelists. That was very informative. And thank you so much for joining us today and tuning in. See you next time.
Thank you all. Bye now. Yeah, bye now.